What is going on, guys? It is Wrestlelamia here, back with another video. Join us now as Wrestlelamia predicts the winners and losers for all of the matches for one of the WWE's biggest and most anticipated events next to Wrestlemania. In fact, we're going to go a little bit more into detail about the Rumbles, who will draw number 1, who will draw number 30, and who will be the Iron Man or Woman, and who will be the outright winner. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos, and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. As we discussed in our news and rumors video on the Royal Rumble, this year's pay-per-view is going to be one of the most important in recent memory, largely because WrestleMania 37 is the first show where fans will be present. At least that's the current plan since 2020's Elimination Chamber. As such, the WWE wants to kick off what is hoping to be the return of live events, at least for pay-per-views, and do so with a true showcase of the Immortals. Expect some huge matches coming out of the Rumble as the WWE kicks off to the road to WrestleMania and continues the build-up through Elimination Chamber and, of course, Fastlane. Let's start off with the Men's Royal Rumble match. With 17 of the 30 entrants announced, the WWE still has room for more superstars to make the cut on SmackDown, as well as to throw in the usual surprise returns and Legends appearances. Who will be number 1? Well, we believe it's Shinsuke Nakamura, as while Royal Rumble history has seen superstars enter at number 1 and emerge victorious, Shawn Michaels in '95, Chris Benoit in 2004 and Rey Mysterio in 2006, it's a rarity, something Shinsuke Nakamura will have to overcome when he enters the Royal Rumble first. What about entrant number 30? Well, we believe it's Otis, as coming in last seems like a guaranteed win in the Rumble, but as any savvy wrestling fan knows, it's not a lock for a win, as incredibly, only 3 superstars have turned the lucky number into victory. The Undertaker in 2007, John Cena in 2008, and Triple H in 2016. Look for wrestling's lovable oaf Otis to get the favourable number and take advantage of his opportunity, perhaps even getting a chance to revenge himself on The Miz for stealing his Money in the Bank briefcase. What about the Royal Rumble Iron Man, as we see him being Shinsuke Nakamura? Everyone knows it's a given that a wrestler wants to win the Royal Rumble, but there's something to be said for being the person who stays in the match longer than anyone else, ideally winning it in the end. The WWE has repeatedly used the Rumble Iron Man as a way to get wrestlers over, including Bob Backlund in '93, Chris Benoit in 2004, Rey Mysterio in 2006, and Daniel Bryan at the Greatest Royal Rumble in 2018 at Saudi Arabia. Nakamura has been getting a push on SmackDown following his strong performance in the Gauntlet match to determine the number 1 contender for the Universal Championship, and rumor has it that Nakamura, who recently turned face, is one of the underutilized stars that WWE Creative is trying to build back up in order to help boost ratings. While it's unlikely that WWE is going to put the world title on Nakamura, an Iron Man-like performance at this year's Rumble could help him get over for 2021. But who's going to win? Well, we see Daniel Bryan winning it. Now, there are a number of potential big-name winners, including some possible surprise returns such as Brock Lesnar, Seth Rollins, and Braun Strowman. There's even been talk of WWE continuing Big E's push by having him win the Rumble, and then the WWE replicating Kofi Mania with Big E. Could be Biggie Mania. While Big E's push has been going well, it's unknown whether he's quite ready for the main event, especially at WWE's Show of Shows. While superstars such as Lesnar, Rollins, and Strowman are proven main eventers, Rollins and Strowman don't give off the same WrestleMania main event vibe they did before. Lesnar, on the other hand, has to be seen as a potential winner due to the instant storyline of the Beast battling longtime opponent Roman Reigns, with both men sharing a history of Paul Heyman as their advisor. Another name that can't be ruled out is Edge, who cut a passionate promo on Raw about having less opportunities ahead of him, a hint he could win the Rumble and challenge the WWE or Universal Champion. This incredible number of potential winners is good news for the WWE, but we're going with Daniel Bryan as the outright winner, as it's been heavily rumoured that he'll have a match with Roman Reigns, and that they'll get things started by having Bryan make a spirited performance in the Rumble, winning it and earning a title shot against Roman Reigns. Our final prediction: Daniel Bryan wins the Royal Rumble. Next up, the Women's Royal Rumble match. 2020 was a hit and miss year for women's wrestling in the WWE, as its only highlight was the storyline involving the rise and fall of the Golden Role Models, aka Sasha Banks and Bayley. As we've commented in the past, the WWE seems to put the entire women's division in a holding pattern while it waits for the return of Becky Lynch. The big question is whether Lynch will return at the Rumble, and it's also rumored whether Ronda Rousey will be back, either at the Rumble or when Lynch inevitably regains the Raw Women's Championship. That means this year's Women's Rumble could see some surprise returns or be an ultimately meaningless match as the winner becomes the latest person to keep the man's title warm. But who's going to be the first entrant? We see Charlotte Flair being number one. Let's look for the WWE to get the Rumble off with a strong entrant, as wrestlers will have to find a way to overcome the Queen if they want to emerge victorious. Flair should serve as a strong roadblock for many wrestlers, as fans wonder if she'll repeat her Royal Rumble win from last year. Entrant number 30 though, well, we see the spot reserved for Nia Jax. If the WWE has any sense of decency, it will put Nia Jax in as the last contestant for the Women's Rumble, as it can't afford to have this dangerous worker injuring any of its WWE stars. Now, whilst we're not saying that Jax is the female equivalent of Ryback, he's been known to be more dangerous in the ring, we will say that she has repeatedly hurt opponents in the ring through carelessness, or what might some call flat-out ineptitude. Look for Jax to come in at number 30 and hopefully make it through the match without potatoing any of her opponents. What about Royal Rumble Iron Woman? Well, the women's division could benefit from elevating more stars out of the mid-card section, chief among them the highly talented Bianca Belair. Belair had a strong performance at last year's Rumble, lasting over 35 minutes, eliminating 8 opponents before being thrown out by Charlotte Flair. Another Iron Woman performance could help her further, particularly since she's involved in a potentially breakout program with Bayley. But what about the winner? Well, we see it as being Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss's WWE career took an unusual turn when the WWE paired her with The Fiend late last summer. While the idea Bliss and the Beast could have watered down The Fiend, it actually gave the character another layer and gave Bliss's character a shot in the arm after performing on autopilot as one half of the Women's Tag Team Champions. Bliss is surprisingly good as an anti-hero, especially since she's incorporated some of The Fiend's moveset and mannerisms, not to mention her powers, and it's what the Raw Women's division needs right now, a talented performer with the right amount of charisma and fan support to help revive a moribund title. Look for Alexa to showcase her wrestling skills and creep-tastic character as she makes it through the Rumble. Our final prediction, Alexa Bliss wins the Women's Royal Rumble. Next up, the Women's Tag Team Championship match as champions Asuka and Charlotte Flair take on Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. The so-called dream team of Asuka and Charlotte has only furthered the perception that the WWE creative still hasn't figured out how to book the women's tag team titles. Despite the women's roster having more teams than ever, they rarely have the titles defended, and as we see here, they're typically used to advance singles programs. In a perfect world, Jax and Baszler will win the belts back and then drop them to a team such as the Riot Squad. This would allow Charlotte Flair to continue her program, some might say pointless program with Lacey Evans, and have Asuka make some Raw Women's Championship defenses more than once a month. Look for Flair's nemesis Lacey Evans, or even her father Ric Flair at this point, to interfere in the match, helping the former tag team champions regain the titles. Our final prediction, Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler win the women's tag team titles. Next up, the last man standing match for the Universal Championship as champion Roman Reigns, who's with Paul Heyman, takes on Kevin Owens. Only the WWE could take one of the most dynamic turns in recent memory and follow it up with a lackluster lineup of title challenges, not because of the opponents themselves, but the repetitive booking of matches. While Reigns deserves credit for helping to elevate his cousin Jay from the tag ranks into a viable singles performer and main eventer, the matches themselves have seen the same finishes, as have the matches featuring Kevin Owens. Even worse, Roman has lost his reputation as a tough opponent, relying too much on outside interference and low blows to win matches. Yes, it's a heelish thing to do, but the way he's built, shouldn't need to do that. Look for more of the same as Owens has Reigns on the verge of defeat, only for Jey Uso and who knows who else lending a hand to help him retain. Our final prediction, Roman Reigns retains the Universal Championship. And now it's time for the WWE Championship match as champion Drew McIntyre takes on Goldberg. The WWE has something big planned by bringing Bill Goldberg in to challenge Drew McIntyre for the championship, but just what is Vinnie Mac's endgame? There seems to be two schools of thought on this, so let's start with the nightmare scenario. Dollar Bill defeats Drew McIntyre, winning the championship and challenging Roman Reigns in a title versus title match at WrestleMania 37. The other possibility is that the WWE is using Big Bad Bill to help get Drew over, having Drew get a huge win over Goldberg, with Bill giving Drew his seal of approval after the match. That will either set up Drew for a big money title defense at WrestleMania against a challenger from Raw such as Edge or even Brock Lesnar, or an interbrand match involving Drew and Roman. Drew has a lot to prove after Roman cheated his way to victory at Survivor Series, and a rematch would be seen as a battle of two of the WWE's best. While we can't rule out a Goldberg win, we're thinking that there's far more money in McIntyre retaining. Our final prediction, Drew McIntyre retains the WWE Championship. But there you have it guys, all of the winners and losers for the 2021 Royal Rumble. Let us know your predictions in the comments down below and who you see winning the women's and men's Royal Rumble. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.